This is a bottle of the Prideful Goat, a craft distillery bourbon that's bottled in Houston, Texas. Now today I'm going to teach you a little bit about reading labels with this, and we'll start off right with the front here. Now these guys, as you can see, I have opened this and I'll give you my thoughts on it later, but immediately looking at the front here, age 6 years, they give you the mash bill right away. It says about 21% or so rye. Typically bourbons tend to be 9 to 12% rye or so. So this one is a little higher rye, which is kind of nice. So we'll get some more interesting flavors, kind of a graininess, a spiciness with that. So that's pretty good. But the big thing here is unfiltered cask strength. Now, cask strength barrel proof just means that they took the juice out of the barrel. They didn't water it down with any water whatsoever. What's coming out of the barrel goes straight into the bottle, and you're getting all of the bite from the alcohol from it. I tend to like this more because I think this is more of the true expression of what the barrel's done to the juice and the flavors of the juice and everything. Bottled and bond is great, but I like having a little bit of an extra bite on it to really round everything out with this. So that's our front label, but the meat of the potatoes is really on the back here. We got our nice little description, but here you really want to keep an eye out for these kind of statements. So it says, distilled in Indiana, bottled in Houston, Texas. Now, what does that mean? So distilled in Indiana tends to mean that the juice itself was distilled and made by a company called MGP, Midwest Grain Products. Now, this is a company in Indiana where they basically mass produce juice to be sold to craft distilleries all around the country. They're a big sourcing company, so a lot of your favorite craft distilleries use their juice. Smoke Wagon, Redwood Empire, a bunch of other ones that even I like. But a lot of their juice tends to have a lot of like a strange grainy kind of texture to it, and I'm not a huge fan of it. And if you can't really control your juice so much, it can take away from the flavor profile that you want to capture with whatever your spirit is going to be. But just know that they're out there. They're sometimes called Ross and Squibb on some bottles and stuff like that, but they don't tend to be that great. And that's why I don't drink Penelope. And I know people swear by that, but there's nothing special about Penelope whatsoever. It's only a gimmick to me. And then it's bottled in Houston. So this company, they took the juice from MGP, they bottled it, aged it wherever, and then they bottled it in Houston, and then they sold it from there. So that's pretty good to know. But if there's a place in particular, distillery, that is going to say where the juice is distilled, where it's aged and everything, it will explicitly say it, because otherwise they're hiding something, or they're probably sourcing from MGP or another one, maybe Bardstown, but Bardstown's in Kentucky. Their juice tends to be a little better, and everybody tends to source from them. 13th Colony, Redwood Empire, Smoke Wagon, all these places, even the ones that I like. So keep that in mind here, and that's why it's important to read your labels, to know where it's coming from, so that you have a good idea of what to expect from the bottle itself and the juice inside. So without further ado, let's get started with this tasting. So I've obviously opened this up before, and the cork was very thin. I know the cork is just for fun, but they tend to be a good sign to me of how the bottle is going to do, and it was very thin and disappointing here. So we'll have a little pour, and then try out some of the nose here. The color is very amber-like. It's darker than that butterscotch, that caramel. There's much more of an amber quality. It's not quite bronze, but it's amber here, so that's nice. And already there's a punchy kind of graininess to it. Imagine smelling fresh rye bread or rye grains out in the farm or whatever. There's kind of that to it. Maybe a little bit of red fruit, mostly kind of like a raspberry or a cherry right here. But a lot of it's kind of dominated by that rye, a little bit of that butterscotch smell. So that rye is going to add extra to the nose and to the palate here. So let's have a taste. We drink today because tomorrow we die. And it starts off very forward with that rye, that graininess. The graininess is more of the texture that kind of feels like on your tongue. It's going to be a little punchy, which tends to be pretty good. I pick up a lot of cherry. That's mostly the red fruit I'm picking up here. Maybe some baking spices, that kind of like punchiness that's from that kind of a powderiness. But once it crosses over your tongue, the middle of it, it just fizzles out and dies. It's dry and it's peppery for really no reason. It's burn for the sake of burn. And that's incredibly boring. This just reminds me of the Garrison Brothers Cowboy. And I might be in the unpopular opinion on this, but I think that bottle is extremely boring and just burn for the sake of burn. This is no different here. So this isn't my thing whatsoever. I find it incredibly boring bottle. And that stinks because someone at the liquor store was recommending this to me. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is a 3.5 out of 10. It's a boring finish that it just is very disappointing with the flavor bomb that it is up front. So that's my recommendation. And, you know, if you got to try it, so be it. But read your labels. That's important. That'll be it for this episode. Cheers.